you almost feel like giving up. And I don't want that to happen to you. So listen, if you are in that spot right now, if you're around influences that pull you down and they keep you complacent and they don't want you to change because that makes them feel insecure for not changing themselves. First of all, you get those people the fuck out of your life, period. I don't care if they're family. I don't care if they're friends. I don't care if they're coworkers. I don't care who they're, your boss. I don't care. You get them out of your life because your brain will always constantly absorb the information and the energy that you are around, and you will adopt that into your own psyche. Subconsciously, it will code itself, and it will be a hell of a time to get it out of there because it will become an automatic behavior that is below your level of awareness that will just keep you operating with those same limiting belief systems that keep you stuck. And then you wonder, why the fuck am I still here? Why am I thinking negative all the time? Why do I not want to wake up in the morning and start my day? Why do I want to stay up late because I feel like I'm missing something in my day still that I haven't done? You're missing the challenge, right? You're missing the growth. You're also being stuck around the same influences that are holding you down and leashing you like fucking shackles. Get rid of them. Did you miss me? What is happening, baby? Oh, yeah, man, your boy has been extremely busy recently, so I apologize for the delay, but I am back in action here. So it is Saturday, it's about 5:30 in the morning, and I'm about to hit some shoulders and some abs. So let me tell you, my life has been busy, to say the least. I have had massive opportunities enter my life in terms of occupation and vocation. We've moved recently. My client load has gotten extremely busy. I have all my snowbirds coming in town, which if you're not familiar with that term, it's something we say in southern states like Arizona, when people from the north migrate down south for the winter. And so there's that. I've had more clients coming back into town. One of my clients just got back from Africa for a month. Crazy. But lots been transpiring. I've still been at it. I am in my growth phase, we'll say, for, my bodybuilding. And right now I put a lot of focus into growing and expanding in many dimensions. So I have some regenerative medicine opportunities coming up in terms of business. Like I said, I'm still busy with my in-person coaching. This branding has taken a moment, or YouTube rather, we'll say, has taken a little bit of a pause because I've just been trying to figure out how the hell I got to get my workout in the morning before my first client at 6 a.m. And then I work all the way until 4 p.m., kind of back to back. So, as you know, I have administrative leadership duties. I have to run and coach my sales team. And then I have my own workouts, and then on top of that, I'm trying to fucking figure out how to get home, cook my food, spend some time with my wife before I go to bed around anywhere from like 7:30 to 8:30, because I literally just can't even stay up anymore. So my days are getting started at 3 a.m. right now. They're probably going to need to get pushed back a little bit to 2 a.m. In order for me to get my workout in, because I'm not a huge advocate working out later in the day. I feel like when you invest that time into yourself in the morning, it's probably the best way to get your workout done. I feel like as the energy gets eaten from you and stole from you, throughout the day, plus if you have any type of business in your life, there's many different problems that could pop up and surface throughout the day. So, those can definitely steal your attention and energy away from yourself. So, got to get the workout in first thing. So I rather wake up an hour early than work out in the afternoon. It's just not my style. Never have been. I hate the energy in the afternoons, the types of people that come to the gym. It just doesn't feel like it kind of matches, the type of atmosphere I want to be around. So your boy's been busy. What we're going to do today is I'm going to do a quick workout. I'll just kind of like run through this. I'm going to do a little bit of filming once I get home. I'll show you the new place. It's not fully assembled yet. We still have some pieces of furniture that need to get put into our place, because when we move, we like to get rid of everything, not take anything with us. And then we'll see where the rest of the day takes us. I'll see if I can get some meal prepping in too, potentially. I'm in the process right now of changing up my diet a little bit, so still trying to figure out what foods that I want to eat. I had some digestive issues a little while back. I found that was actually coming from almond butter. That was fucking up my stomach, which I've never really tolerated seeds well. Same thing with vegetables. But I do have a concierge physician, so I am getting some peptides for my digestive health, BPC and KPV. It's a combination of peptides that helps with healing the stomach lining and then also helps with joints. So It's always good to have somebody like that in your corner that can help you out, that can assist you. So if you're concerned about your health, or if like you invest into your health, or it's a priority for you, you need to find yourself a concierge physician that can work in tandem, with your health goals. So that's that. Let's get to this workout today. Again, shoulders and abs. I'm going to start off with a little bit of rollouts here, a little bit of weighted crunch movement, and then we'll move on from there. Oh, okay, yeah. So, is this arm still? Okay. So with those rollouts, extremely beneficial for opening up the abs, okay? Because the thing is, our posture gets very tight and restrictive as we start to slouch throughout the day. And this, what it does is it kind of opens up the abdomen, almost like an RDL for the hamstrings. You know, like when you're stretching out the hamstrings with like a barbell, reaching for your toes. It's training the hamstrings though, but more in a stretch position. Same thing when you're doing rollouts, you're stretching the abs opposed to squeezing and shortening them. So I like to start with this, loosen it up, get the body moving, and then we're gonna do some crunches. So let's go jump to that now. All right, so again, keeping in mind your abs are muscles, okay? And what does that mean? Well, oh fuck, run away. Stay. Okay, my ab roller was running away. All right, so abs, muscles, okay? You can't just do bodyweight squats and expect your legs to grow, right? You can't just do bodyweight crunches and expect your abs to grow. So if you want that nice turtle shell look where the abs kind of protrude out and they stick out and they look developed, what you're gonna wanna do is make sure you train with weight. And I don't like to just do cable crunches because that only trains about half the abdomen. Instead, what I like to do is add a weight to my feet, add a weight to my hands, lay on a box, get a full open, and squeeze off from the abs. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I got a 10-pound dumbbell here, 10-pound plate in my hand. I'm gonna lay on this box. I'm pinching the dumbbell between my feet. I'm gonna lay back flat here. I'm gonna open all the way, big stretch in the abdomen. And what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna try to crunch off by squeezing my shoulders to my pelvic bone, okay? So right here, open, close. Oh, fuck. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Oh, fuck. That's the good stuff right there. So I'm going to do about, 3-ish sets of this back and forth, stretching, squeezing, and then I'll see how my abs feel. Maybe I'll do some rotational shit. I don't know. I'm going to finish this up though, and then we'll head to the next exercise. All right, so just finished up with a few sets of that. Some weighted exercises with the crunches and then some rollouts. Now I'm just gonna tie it in with some leg raises and also just some traditional bodyweight crunches. So that way I've already exhausted and fatigued the muscle with some weight and stretching. And now I'm just gonna finish it up with some really hard squeezes for some light bodyweight work. That way I can kind of, define that muscle and exhaust it to failure here. So, man, I'm already feeling my abs like crazy. But let's get this started. So I like to do my leg raises off of a bench, because I like to be able to get a little bit of a dip, If you're doing it straight from the floor, your feet hit the ground and you can't get any pelvic extension, right? Like you can't actually get your hips to go backwards, right? So what I want to do with this bench is to allow my legs to drop a little so it opens my hips. And then that way I can get a better squeeze coming out of the pocket for that lower abdomen, which most people neglect. So I also want to make sure that I'm grabbing something that puts my upper body in a stationary position, locks it into play here. That way when I do my leg raises, I don't move from my upper body, okay? So grabbing onto these handles right here, and I'll grab underneath here, okay? Straight legs,
Little bit of opening of the hips. Let my legs go past my body. Try to squeeze from my lower abs. Fuck. Oh my God. Whew, if you're having trouble feeling your lower abs, I recommend doing it off of a bench. As you notice, I don't bring my toes all the way up to my eyes because that's completely irrelevant. You don't want to try to rotate your hips all the way to your chest because then it takes it out of your lower abdomen, because now your lower abdomen is actually sitting above your body, right? You want to keep it in a flat plane, and what I'm doing is I'm raising my legs up till they're about 90 degrees and really focusing on that squeeze in the lower part of my abs, okay? I'm not trying to train my upper abs with this one, mainly my lower abs. Okay? So, give that a shot, let me know what you think, baby. All right, so whenever we're doing a crunching motion, get off the ground. Get off the ground, okay? Because when you're on a flat plane like that, what people tend to do is they tend to get this rocking motion, okay? And when you rock like that, you're actually engaging some of the hip flexors, you know? So the hip flexors are the ones that bring your knees up, okay? But they connect from the top of your, like, we'll say the top of your femur bone, the top of your leg bone, right? Into your spine. So what it's doing is it's helping you bring your legs up or bring your body into your legs, right? It helps you shorten. So a lot of people, they get this like jolting out of the pocket and they take out all the stress from their abs. And maybe you feel a little bit of a burn, but you're not fully maximizing the squeeze, and that's why you're not developing the abs. So what I like to do is actually put myself on a slight incline bench, about like 15 degrees, because what that does, it takes out that jolting motion and keeps the concentration strictly on the abs. And what I do with my arms to make sure I get a full extension and open up all the way is I bring them above my head. So I'm gonna come all the way above my head with a big crunch, and then I'm gonna squeeze as hard as I can, not thinking about sitting up. You don't want to sit upwards from like a flat position. You want to crunch into your body, almost like a shearing motion. Like if I were to take your shoulders and I were to roll them to your hips, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get this like rolling motion to engage it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm on a slight incline here. I'm going to lay it back flat. I'm going to lay back flat. Open all the way with the arms here. And I'm not shooting myself up. I'm trying to take my shoulders and roll them to my hips. So, nice squeeze. Open up all the way. Extend. Try to open your ribs up. That's going to stretch the abdomen. And what you're doing is you're crunching into your body. So crunch in. Don't sit up. Roll in, you'll feel your abs tighten. Keep that squeeze at the top. Don't loosen it. Keep it locked. Slowly open it. Slowly release the squeeze. I'm squeezing and slowly releasing. I'm not sitting up. I'm not jerking myself up and falling backwards. They're still tight, even at the top of the motion. Oh. And then I slowly open them. Right. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Hey, look, if you... Okay. A quick little note here. If you can do more than 10 crunches, you are probably doing it wrong. Your goal should not be to hit 10, it should be to not hit 10, right? Like my abs hurt so fucking bad right now. I can't even keep a straight face. Oh, they're like a probably an 8 out of 10 pain right now, okay? So when you're doing this, you need to squeeze it like it owes you some money. And I mean, don't do this shit where you're shooting yourself up and then you're falling backwards. You're trying to flex and squeeze those abs literally as hard as you can, like so they feel like they're gonna pop, okay? And that is how you develop them. You know, you're not going to develop them by having a half-assed contraction and throwing yourself up and falling backwards. I always say, think about like squeezing your fist and slowly releasing the squeeze. It's not like it's a slow squeeze and a slow release, okay? That is how you develop the muscles. And if you never gain that, if you never really internalize that philosophy, you're probably never going to get good development. So focus on the feeling, not the finish. Focus on the squeeze. All right, so now what I'm going to do is focus on a little bit of warm-ups for the shoulders. I'm doing some mobility stuff with some light plates, just getting some overhead movement, really opening up and fully externally rotating my shoulders. And then I'm also doing like an overhead press. Now when I do the overhead barbell presses, I don't go heavy because it's more of a compound movement, which means essentially there's a lot of muscle groups that are engaged with this exercise. So it's not ideal for growth in isolation, right? So what I do with it instead is I use it for a warm up. That way I can get a full overhead range. And when you do the proper way of doing an overhead press, like when they do it in like CrossFit, like they're doing it properly, which means you're kind of coming in front of your body, loading it. You're not way out here. You're loading it in front, because what that does is when your elbows drive down, you get this like pinch in your shoulder blades, and you could set that bar on your chest. That way when you're driving out of the pocket, you're getting all of that coming from the front shoulder and none of it coming from anywhere else. So what I'm going to do is at the top half of the range, when my arms are above my head, I'm actually going to get my upper traps engaged, and you'll feel a little bit of tension when you do that. You'll be able to see it when I do it real quick. So let me hit a set real fast. You'll be able to see this in action, and then we'll go from there. Let me see if I can straighten that out. It's really bothering me. This isn't properly straight. I get OCD about random shit. Okay, let me see if that's good. I don't know. I guess we'll find out, right? Maybe down a little bit. Okay, good enough, good enough. Okay, so doing some overhead range here. I'm grabbing about shoulder width for me, going overhead, chest up nice and high. Press all the way through. Topping off that movement at the top, you'll see my upper traps a little bit engaged and pinched. And then I'm putting my chest up, I'm dropping my elbows, not my hands. Touching the top part of my collarbone, driving through the elbows, coming all the way through. Oh. Again, not trying to exhaust myself, more so just trying to get some mobility out of that movement. Next thing I'm going to do is grab some of these light 2.5 pound plates here. Okay. And what I'm doing is to get full, let me drop this one down a little bit. I'm going to get like a full rotation coming through this. So I'm going to start my palms facing like in so I can rotate. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm rotating, I'm stretching the joint capsule all the way from behind my shoulder. Okay. And I'm going to rotate externally, open up, and I'm going to go all the way above the head, keep my chest nice and high. And then I'm going to come all the way back, rotate them back in. So I'll show you this looking for the back. So right here, rotate it in, opening the shoulders, big pinch, opening the chest, coming all the way through, above head. Nice little warm up. Couple sets here, and then we'll go to some more isolated shit. Sometimes I'll do dumbbells. Sometimes I'll do machines. Although I don't really train shoulders isolated by themselves very often. It's probably the first time in probably over a month since I just focused on shoulders. And you know, when you're thinking about aesthetics, you need to look at your body in an objective way, right? Which means like what areas do you feel like are lacking development? You know, which areas do you feel like are overdeveloped? And you definitely don't want to give any more attention to areas that are overdeveloped. Like my shoulders have always been overdeveloped. And when people ask me, what do I do for them? It doesn't matter what I do for them. It's just always been a genetically superior body part for me. So it's like I can literally do, some lightweight dumbbell laterals once a week and my shoulders grew, right? They can grow from secondary motion. They can grow from doing chest exercises, so it's not really what you do, it's how you do it. And also there's a lot of genetic factors that are involved with that too. But what I'm going to do today is just do a little bit of like shoulder pressing on the isolated plate loaded machine here. And then maybe I'll do some laterals on some cables, maybe some dumbbells. I don't know. I'm going to feel it out, see how things work out for me. And then just go based on the feeling. Now, when you're doing any type of shoulder pressing movement, what you don't want to do is push the shoulder out here. You want to get it underneath because, again, when you want to stretch the front of the shoulder, you're kind of coming through with your movement, okay? You're not pushing out and away. You're coming down and loading it. And then you're driving out of the pocket. Because think about when you're doing a front raising motion, it will focus on the front of your shoulder, right? If you're trying to do a press and focus on the front of your shoulder, then you need to come in front of your body, not out to the side. This also puts the joint in the shoulder in a very vulnerable position. Okay, why? Because you can internally rotate it. And that's where tears and injuries happen. And that's when you can also pinch the back of the rotator cuff muscle called the supraspinatus, which most people end up tearing. Okay, so if you want to get good development for your shoulders, lighten up your weight loads, and you want to bring your elbow in front of you. You don't want to go nice and wide. So when I'm doing this pressing motion, my elbows are right here. They're not way out here, okay? Right out in front, nice and slow. Just like so, nice and easy. All right, so that was a rather quick and uneventful workout that we did there. However, I started to feel a little bit of irritation inside what you call the proximal bicep tendon. It's like right up here in the shoulder. A lot of people think they get shoulder pain when it's like right in here in the front. Generally speaking, it's like bicep tendonitis, or could be from the chest too going in there. I was feeling some tightness, probably from the way I slept last night. We got a new bed, and I think I'm still adjusting to the pillow density. So I've been making a lot of shifts and sleeping on my side, and the bed's comfortable as hell, but it's just an adjustment. And when you're feeling those types of tensions in the body, and I'm not talking about good pain. Like, there's pain where you start to work out and you get a burning sensation in the muscle that you're training. That's one thing. But if you feel like it's kind of like a little bit of irritation and a burning somewhere where it's not supposed to be, like in the joint itself, then you need to scale back and you need to use your best judgment on that and just decide that you are not going to do that. So I just decided to end the workout early. I got a good amount of abs done. I did some shoulder pressing, a little bit of shoulder mobility stuff. My shoulders are rather overdeveloped anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter too much if I don't get a full workout in. It is what it is. I'll get some secondary work throughout the week. Maybe I'll kind of touch some stuff up, but that's just the nature of the business. Not every day is a perfect day for training, and I will tell you, you need to learn to partner with your body and learn to speak its language, because if you're experiencing any type of pain or tightness where it's not supposed to be, and you keep trying to push past it, well, that's just arrogant, and that's how you get yourself hurt. So I don't recommend doing that. I recommend terminating the workout early or switching it up, training something different. In this case, I just decided to terminate the workout and just go and do a little bit of cardio. So did a couple lateral raises, like I said, and it wasn't like, didn't feel too good. So decided to call it quits on that. Anyway, wanted some cardio in. I gotta get back on my cardio game. My schedule's gotten so busy as of recently, I've just had to condense my workout to like an hour. So filming has been quite difficult. Having to film while I'm working out, while I'm talking, I want to make sure that I give enough quality interaction with what I'm doing, because I like to explain why I do things. I never like to just tell people what to do. It's kind of I think it's like kind of irrelevant. If you teach people to follow something instead of learn how to think about something, well, then you never really truly help them, right? I want to teach you a skill. I want you to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. I don't want to just tell you what to do. That's why when someone sells you a program, it's bullshit, right? A program does nothing for you. That's like, a kid who's 15 years old. I'm going to say, hey, listen, friend, here's a sheet of paper with how to drive a car on it. Go for it, figure it out, right? There's so much more context to the way that you apply and implement the stuff that's on there, right? In the program itself. So you can't really give a detailed explanation by just giving the exercise itself. You need to be able to explain why you're doing that. Also what to look for, what to make sure you avoid, what to prioritize, how to position, how to select weight loads, what it should feel like. There's so many different elements of it that you can't really just say, here you go, here's a plan, here's a program, get to it. So what I try to do with my coaching clients is I really make sure that you understand what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. Because I want you to be able to replicate this as a skill for the rest of your life. If I work with somebody for a year, not only can I significantly change their physique and their health, and the pains in their body, I can teach you the skill that's going to allow you to do this the rest of your life. So even if you do fall off at some point, you're going to be able to jump right back on. A program doesn't do that. A program is just a system that you follow that once you're done with the system, you haven't really learned much. So you fall off of it, and then you realize once you get out of shape again, maybe you just try to do the system again. But you're never truly understanding why you're doing the system or what it's doing for you. So you can't avoid the downfalls, the pitfalls, the obstacles that you experience outside of that system, right? I don't want to show you some shoulder exercises. I want to tell you how you train your shoulders, why these things are necessary, what to avoid when you experience pains, what to do, how to progress, how to regress, how to reposition, how to pick weights, what it should be feeling like versus not feeling like, where the muscle is, how it functions, right? If you don't understand all these concepts, it makes what you're doing very, very difficult to retain, right? It's kind of useless. It's almost just like fact memorization instead of like understanding the general gestalt, like the general idea of it, right? So I encourage you to learn how to think, not learn how to follow. And you can't really do that when you're purchasing online programs. So I don't believe in them. I believe in coaching. I think that's the most efficient way to go about something. The system in itself can change, it can vary. Maybe it's not even the right system for the right person, because again, you need to teach the skill. You don't give the program. So that takes time, that takes effort. And most people don't have the patience to be able to do something like that because they want quick results. That's what they think they're paying for. No, what you're paying for is a skill. That's what you're paying for. So that being said, got to get back on my cardio game. A little bit of updates with me. I have been in more of a growth season, we'll say. And, when you get into the growth seasons, it's always the dietary elements get a little bit blurred for me because I do increase my food loads. But as seasons change, I start to want to eat different foods, Like in the summertime, I like to have an abundance of fruit. I like to also have fish. I feel like it's a little bit lighter on the stomach and the system. And just the energy of the summer season makes you feel like you want to be light and mobile, right? And in the wintertime, you want to eat something hearty, something that's going to be calorie dense, something that you feel like is going to fill you up and, kind of provide you with enough calorie base to keep your body warm and functioning throughout the winter months, right? So I go into my growth seasons when I hit the winter. And in Arizona, it doesn't get that cold. I mean, it's like fucking 60s and 70s here in the winter. It's fantastic. But, however, when you go from 120 down to 60s or 70s, it feels chilly. Anything under 80 here is chilly. So the seasons change, and as the seasons start to change, your body starts to change, because we are part of nature, right, in itself. So you'll start to recognize that not only just the way that your body feels physically, but also the way psychologically you start to think is different, right? If you look at animals, that are winter hybrids, right? They experience winter seasons, so they grow thicker coats of fur in the winter to keep themselves warm. Us as humans, we start to pattern body fat, and our chemistry in our body changes in order to compensate for the seasonal change, keep us warm. We also crave different things, right? We also feel the need to have different foods and nutrients. That's why things like citrus fruits grow in wintertime, because the vitamin C pairs with nature, it pairs with our body, because what happens in the wintertime, we generally get sick, right? Vitamin C helps complement that, or combat that rather. So our bodies are in tune with nature. on a physiological basis and also a psychological basis. The consciousness starts to flip on, I would say, during the fall season and winter. You go into this deep introspective mode, and then you start to think to yourself, like, what needs to change about my life? You tend to go inward. In physics, we like to say endothermic versus exothermic. Endothermic when the heat goes to the inside versus exothermic when the heat goes to the outside, right? So we go to the winter time, we tend to go in, right? We tend to want to bundle up. We tend to want to hibernate, per se, even on a psychological basis. So we tend to go in. We tend to have introspection and reflection. And the fall season almost kind of represents the beginning of that. And it starts off by shedding old belief systems and ways of thinking and systems that are no longer serving us, because we're starting to go through a transition. Very, very similar to leaves on a tree. They start to shed during the wintertime to prepare for the change, getting rid of what's old to make room for what's new. And a lot of times we aren't prepared for that psychological shift, and we start to have destructive habits that follow that, because we're not really sure what to do with that energy when that consciousness flips on and we start to, question our lives, and we start to put ourselves in positions of that self-reflective, field, right? We almost become a target to ourselves, and we self-sabotage in ways because we don't know how to manage that flip on of consciousness that takes place during that transition, because we just feel different. We feel restless. And sometimes we try to attach those things to things in our life that don't need to be changed. I want you to think about a landscaper. If they're ripping out the weeds, well, that's a very good thing. But what happens if they start ripping out the flowers, right? Are you ripping out the flowers instead of the weeds? When you're making these changes in your life, you got to ask yourself, be objective. And the best way to do this is to think about long-term goals, think about positioning where you're at in your life, and think about if these changes make sense or if they don't, if they're more so just destructive than constructive to your life, if they're not building upon something, instead they're rather taking away from something. When I see a lot of people in the wintertime, they make changes towards, I need to change my occupation, I need to change my job. I see that because I have employees that work underneath me, and I just want to change jobs. This isn't working. I would say that is a convenient way to escape your problems, right? If you're unsatisfied with something because of an incompetence of skill sets, well, then you need to go about fixing those. And I don't say that in a facetious way. I say that in an endearing way. Is if you run from problems because they overwhelm you, well, then you'll never truly grow, because what you're really doing is running away from your growth potential, right? If you find problems, that's a good thing. You don't run from them, you go towards them. I love a quote by Marcus Aurelius. He says, the impediment to action becomes action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So kind of Ryan Holiday wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way, right? Kind of written around this concept of when you experience a problem, the problem is the solution, right? That's what you go towards. Those things partner hand in hand. If you run away from the problem, what you've done is you've chosen comforts, You've tend to soothe yourself instead of actually solve the problem itself and grow and become better and develop a skill, right? So don't sulk and soothe, Go towards the problem. Go towards the obstacle, because you need to see it as an opportunity, an avenue to grow and get better. We work out inside the gym, it's very uncomfortable, right? And most things that are uncomfortable have opportunities to make us grow, because when we push outside our zone of comfort, it means we're extending beyond our capacity. And when you extend beyond your capacity, you increase your capacity. So it can be difficult sometimes for people to do that because it's unfamiliar to them. They haven't trained their mind to gear towards the comforts, or gear away from the comforts. They've geared it to go towards the comforts. You got to learn to build a positive relationship with what's uncomfortable, because you're going to either experience the discomfort of growth, or you're going to experience the discomfort of discontent, which is a painful poison, right? It sits in our bodies and our minds, and we just wonder why we have this general discontent, like how my life isn't the way I want it to be, or how I'm not where I want to be in life. It's because you're taking what you could be and you're throwing it in the garbage, and instead just sticking with who you are right now and saying this is good enough, although you feel a sense of yearning that it's not. You know that you can do more, you know that you can be more, you know that you can accomplish more, you know that you can have more, but instead what you're choosing is to have what you got right now and not put yourself into that zone of discomfort to be able to get to that next level. In order to grow, you need to stretch the capacity. And if you can't stretch the capacity because you're so focused on your own comforts, well, then I understand why you're having an issue, right? Because you're stuck in your cycle of familiarity and comfort, and you cannot grow when you're in that zone. It's like if you're holding a candle in the dark and you're like, you know what? This is all that's known. The darkness is unknown. I don't want to go towards the darkness. Well, what happens if in the darkness you find something that you wanted your entire life? Where you know something's out there that you're looking for, but you're too scared to take a step. Or let's use a different analogy, Let's use your life is a container, right? And on the walls of the container, there's all these doors that can lead into the expansion of who you are as a person. The problem is you get scared because you don't know what's behind the door, and you've grown a familiarity of what's in the container, right? This is my home. This is where I am. This is where I grew up. This is a job that I have. These are the friends that I have. And you're too scared to let go of those ideas because you think that your identity is going to cripple as a result of it, so you get defensive over it. However, if you go home at the end of the day and you're unsatisfied, you're unfulfilled, and you have this discontent, you need to ask yourself, is that comfort and familiarity that you're sitting in actually the thing that's poisoning you, poisoning your mind, poisoning your potential, taking away from the opportunity for you to grow? And if it is, my friend, you need to figure that shit out quick, because that will be a bad habit that will infect your life. I've seen people on the back half of their life not follow their ambitions and not challenge themselves, only to be stuck themselves in that challenge by just living a life of discontent and being unsatisfied and never reaching their full potential. And it's a scary place to be. You almost feel like giving up. And I don't want that to happen to you. So listen, if you are in that spot right now, if you're around influences that pull you down and they keep you complacent, and they don't want you to change because that makes them feel insecure for not changing themselves. First of all, you get those people the fuck out of your life, period. I don't care if they're family. I don't care if they're friends. I don't care if they're coworkers. I don't care who they're, your boss. I don't care. You get them out of your life because your brain will always constantly absorb the information and the energy that you are around, and you will adopt that into your own psyche. Subconsciously, it will code itself, and it will be a hell of a time to get it out of there, because it will become an automatic behavior that is below your level of awareness, that will just keep you operating with those same limiting belief systems that keep you stuck. And then you wonder, why the fuck am I still here? Why am I thinking negative all the time? Why do I not want to wake up in the morning and start my day? Why do I want to stay up late because I feel like I'm missing something in my day still that I haven't done? You're missing the challenge, right? You're missing the growth. You're also being stuck around the same influences that are holding you down and leashing you like fucking shackles. Get rid of them. I would say you want to be around people that defend you even when you're not in the room with them. You want people that push you and that are honest with you, not people that lie to you and that are sympathetic with you, that make you feel good temporarily. You want people that challenge you to be better. And it's uncomfortable when someone faces you with your reality and say, look, you're just not good enough yet. Look, you're out of shape, you're fat. Look, you're unhealthy. Look, you're being lazy. And when people confront you with that, you got to think about how do you respond. Most of the time you get defensive, right? You want to defend yourself, but you're defending a part of yourself that you don't want to be anymore. So it's kind of a redundant cycle that you're trapped in. And this is why I say it's a poison. Get it the fuck out. Get it out. None of that. I don't like seeing people crash and burn. I don't like seeing people stricken by scarcity and poverty mindset and fear, and making decisions based on those things because they've taught themselves to operate within that fear, within that discomfort, by avoiding it. I want you to think about a moment in your life where you were scared, you were afraid, you were in fear. What happened when the fear was over, when you finished the task? What did you feel then? Probably pretty fucking exhilarated. And that's the reality of things. You have this facade of fear that you create in front of yourself, and you look at it and you're like, you know what, that's a very terrifying monster. And then you realize it's a fucking teddy bear in disguise. You'll realize very quickly that fear is actually growth in disguise. That fear is actually an opportunity for you to become better. But we've been blessed with this opportunity for free will, but the fact of the matter is you're also at the constraints of your own will, which means you have these subconscious limiting belief systems that prevent you from thinking you can do more. And friend, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Literally take off those limiters, those factory installed limiting belief systems that kind of keep you down, because they're doing no good for you. And you got to ask yourself too, is who's the aggressors of that? Because if there's people in your life currently that are feeding that monster, right? That are feeding that insecurity and fear and scarcity mindset, that are complainers, that are negative, that don't want to grow themselves, that are comfortable with where they're at in life, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. Those people are not your friends. Those people are poisoning your mind. Those people are stealing your future from you. And those people are making you poor, broke, and stupid, and insecure. So get away from them. It's better to have no friends than the wrong ones. I'm going to say that again. It's better to have no friends than the wrong ones. And a little analogy you can keep inside your head is, if you have two wolves, right? And one lives in the light and one lives in the dark, which one lives? The one that you feed, right? The one that you feed becomes stronger. It survives. If you feed toxic negative mentality in your head by letting people in your life that keep indoctrinating you with these limiting belief systems of scarcity and fear, of course you're going to feel that way. Of course you're going to feel discontent. You're not going to grow, right? Get them out. It's better to have no friends than to have bad ones, right? Learn to think for yourself. And you can't think for yourself when you're subject to the opinions of other people that pull you down and they wrench you to the ground. They say, you're going to stay here with me because I'm uncomfortable when I have to grow. It's uncomfortable to face my fears. It's uncomfortable, to face adversity. Not realizing all those things have been put in life to be your friends. Okay? The adversity, the fear, the growth that is behind all of those is what's going to make you a better person. But all right, friends, don't let fear overcome you. Get those shitty influences out of your life. And if you're feeling the season of change and fall come on, just know that that's natural. Do not be destructive with that thought, that consciousness that starts to irrigate into your consciousness, right? Do not rip out the flowers when you should be ripping out the weeds. Be smart with this decision that you make moving forward. And just know that everybody goes through this transitory period, but the summer and the spring are just around the corner. So hold on tight and make better decisions. And make sure you're always going towards that discomfort and fear that you're avoiding. But all right, that's it for today, friends. I'm not sure if this is going to be the end of this video or if we're going to continue it when I go back home. But, thanks for watching it up into this part if you got here. I hope you found some value from this. If not, that's okay too. Maybe you're just here to check out the muscles. That's all right. But all right, I will see you in a little bit, my friend.